This is the video review for the Yamato 1/160th scale VF-1D trainer Valkyrie. This Valkyrie is from Macross, and it's the trainer Valkyrie that is seen in the first couple of episodes that Hikaru flies around, not really knowing what he's doing. He saves Min-Mei. I wish he didn't, I hate her, but nonetheless. And it's one of the iconic Valkyries, along with Ikaru's red kind of jet fiery markings, and then Roy Fokker's markings, and then what's his name? Maximilian Genius's blue markings. This is one of the later runs of the Yamato 1/160th scale VF1, so it doesn't have the shoulder breaking problem. So if you're interested in buying one of these, this or the Virgin Road are probably the safest bets if you don't want the figure to break. The important accessories he comes with are this gun, replacement hands, including a hand to very loosely hold this gun, and a splayed open hand kind of to hold the gun, and then he comes with the perfect transformation hands, which look really ugly. The best use for these I found is to hold the gun, because if you put the gun into these little hands, they hold them tighter than the other hands, because there's a little peg in here. These can wrap around, and this finger can go into the trigger hole, and then you have the thumb. And then also, aside from just having the peg where all of these hands can use to turn, it has a hinge here, so you can hinge the arm around as you need to get the hand around as you need to get this butt out of the way of the forearm. So these transformation hands, I don't see a point to them as transformation hands, because if you'll notice, it looks just fine if you keep the actual fists right back here. And that's how I typically keep this figure. And those are the closed fists. So, enough about these accessories. Let's get on to the actual... Well, actually no, one last thing I want to talk about is that there is a little gap right here where the gun pod can sit in vehicle mode, in a fighter mode, and if you open the cockpit, you can see a little Ikaru figure. But if you'll notice, the shoulders on mine aren't there anymore. That's because if you put the figure in, if you try and close it down hard enough, the sides of the cockpit will actually press down on the shoulders and snap them off. So do be careful about that. I mean, Hikaru doesn't really fit into this that well, which is a shame because he pilots this thing. So enough rambling about other stuff. Let's talk about the real figure. This is its jet mode. Very nice, very sturdy. Nice landing gear, rolls very well. A lot of people complain about Yamato figures having landing gear that's hard to get out. Yeah, in the case of the VF-19, really hard to get out. But it's easy to get in and out on the VF-1, and I'll show you. First, let me put everything away. Oops. To get it out, first press here on these landing lights that show the direction of the airplane, and then stick your finger in one at a time until you can get all the panels open. Then stick your finger in and then slide it down on that little notch, and there you go. That's a rear landing gear out. For the front, just ram your finger in decently hard, push one of these down, that allow you to get an edge on that, on the other side, that in, and then put your nail on this and then pull the front landing gear out. On the VF1, it's easy to do. The rear landing gear was hard at first until I realized, hey, this opens. So here is the VF-1D with all its landing gear put up, ready to be transformed. First thing you do, fold in the whoops, wrong order. Fold the wings in, then unpeg the legs from, or fold the tails in, unpeg the legs from the side, and push this up for now. Take the legs, detab them from the fuselage here, and bring them all the way up. Then you'll bend them in, which will, well, actually, before we do that, unpeg the arms here and rotate them around and out. There's a little plastic piece right here that you have to fold the arms over. Bring around, take it over. Extend the legs out. I forgot about gearwalk mode. Extend the legs out. Extend the feet out. Open the feet. Spread the feet, and this is the gearwalk mode. It's a VF-1, so it has a nice gearwalk mode, and pretty nice display piece. It has a good A stance because of the thigh swivels, and yeah. Oops. I really like this. The only problem is that unlike the 1/48 scale, I think it's 1/48, this doesn't latch into there anyway. On the 1/48, there's a little hook that came out here and clipped around here. Here, the hook's here and it goes in here, but it doesn't work in gearwalk mode. So to continue transforming to Batroid, straighten the legs out, collapse them in. I typically fold these in, although I think you're only supposed to really do that for the armor. And then bend the legs inwards and down, and this will detab the legs from the fuselage. Then if you pull up, well, I took it off, but it's supposed to come off for another gimmick, but I'll leave it off here now for simplicity. I didn't mean to take it off though. That will allow you to rotate the legs down on the swing bar, and the swing bar looks fragile because it's so thin, and it would be fragile if it were plastic, but it's die-cast metal, so you don't have to worry about this. Next, you will pull this forward and pull this forward, and then just get everything down here loose. Take the nose, shove it up as far as it will go. Take this here. It's kind of a floppy mess, especially since I'm having to hold at an awkward angle. It's usually a bit easier to handle, but the camera in front of me, sitting at kind of a weird angle. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get this little plastic piece here to go forward. Like this. This is the blast shield. It comes out. Pull this forward. And I'll latch it in there. And then that blast shield covers the cockpit. And I think that's really neat how that works. Come under here. Open this. And take these little things here that filled in the holes on the side. And fold those in. Take this around. Open this up and force the swing bar into here. It's kind of hard to do. The more practice you have at it, the easier it is, but it does take some doing. Push it all the way in. Snap it in. Close it, and then push it together like that. And that'll latch everything together solidly. Close the wings. Take this here, press it in, open this up, and latch it over that. And here we have the Batroid mode basically finished. Although I do have to put the head back on. You can transform it without taking off the heads, just for the sake of this review. It is kind of a headachy thing to transform because there's just so much you have to keep in mind. It is a big figure, really big. Let's see. I think I have one of these legs or feet. Not quite even, yeah. I know this is a long, kind of rambling review. It's going to be that way no matter what. It's just one of those figures where you're not going to be able to do it in a timely manner. And yeah, it looks really nice. It looks like a VF-1. Very screen accurate. And you'll see, I use these as perfect transformation fists. They can't really hold anything, but... well, they can. They don't have any holes, but I don't mind. So for articulation, the head can look up and down. It can swivel back and forth at the neck. It can look left and right. And then these little laser things can move. The arms go forward, back, out, in, rotate at the bicep. Then he has a double jointed elbow. And the hands can turn. The legs are kind of interesting. They're ball joints, so they can go all around. But see, the thing is, they can't go forward very much unless you use the Gearwalk knee, which is kind of an interesting way to do a leg joint. He has a bicep or a thigh swivel. You can get quite a bit. You can get about that much at the knees unless you bend them out, then you can get 90 degrees. Although for stability purposes, I tend to just leave them all the way clicked in. Then you get quite a bit of range from the feet because they can go forward and back. They can collapse in if you need. Then they have a little bit of side to side. Although I don't know if that's actually meant to be side to side or if that is just... I don't know what the tolerance of the plastic. What's also interesting is that you can click these out as well as the legs if you need to make one leg just a little bit longer than the other to make a pose work. And he is a little bit too big for my camera setup. But yeah, really nice looking figure, really impressive looking. For the hands, we have this, which can hold the gun. It's a little bit of a pain, though, especially if you forget to deploy the gun pod. Take this out. A very clean fist swapping. It's just a peg that goes in. Then you can hold the rifle basically how you would hold a rifle. Holding it within the crook of your arm, between your body and your bicep. And I think that looks really nice. One thing you can do with this, it's supposed to be the holding things hand, but it doesn't really work because it doesn't have that wrist thing, that wrist motion. That makes it so it's hard to get the gun not to just bump into the forearm, but you can do a Gurren Lagann pose. Your drill is a drill that will pierce the heavens. So with these nice legs that You have to use the Gerwalk knees, but it's an interesting way to do it, but it works. And with the nice shoulder and arm articulation, you can get some nice poses out of this thing. And yeah, I really like it. It has its faults. It's certainly an awkward toy to play with at times just because of how much it takes to transform it. And it does have some things to watch out for. For example, if you will see the back here, there are some stress marks on this hinge. Make sure that when you're just holding this figure, you don't press onto here. I made the mistake, and I wish I hadn't. I made the mistake of holding onto this figure by this piece here. I didn't even notice I was doing it. And it pressed this part right here past this plastic here. And it just locked into that position. There was nothing I could really do. Because the way everything kind of snaps together, I didn't want to take it apart, so I had to force it back past the plastic. I had to be careful doing it so I didn't break anything, but that's kind of a flaw with the design, this little flap here. Now granted, if you're like me, this flap doesn't really matter because it's just one of those tiny itty-bitty show accuracy things. So if this had broken, it wouldn't have been a big deal, but for some people, it would be a big deal. So just a warning. And yeah, this is the VF-1D. It's a really nice piece, and I recommend everyone have at least one VFD in their collection. Preferably one that doesn't have the tendency for the shoulders to break, because what the problem is that if you see, there's a little pin right there, and it's about 1 millimeter of plastic around it. So even on this figure, it is kind of worrisome. I've had this thing for about 2 years. I've messed with it a fair amount, and I haven't noticed any signs of breaking because, well, it's 1 millimeter of plastic around it. The pin is quite long, and so is the plastic, so on one of the safe figures like the VF-1D or the Virgin Road VF-1, where they changed the design a little bit, they forced the manufacturer to take a little bit more care making the figure, it's not that much of an issue. I feel pretty confident in this figure. Now with the, I think the VF-1J, the one in Ikaru colors, that one broke a lot. A lot of people had broken ones, but that was way back when Yamato first released the VF-1 mold. And I've gone way too long talking about this figure. There's a lot to say, but I'm sure everyone's tired of me talking about it now. Those are my thoughts. Thank you for watching.